Yeah,
This is the way it always is.
Good afternoon, Chair Vallendroff, members Garrett and Holmes, staff and guests. The lobbies are open and the recording has begun.
Thank you, Gretchen. Good afternoon, everyone. We'll now convene the executive management team for the Washington State Liquor and Cannabis Board for Wednesday, May 14th. Will is out on vacation, so he will not be here today. And consequently, we've got some different people presenting on different areas. So that's great. I really like seeing that. So welcome to Nicola. To this meeting. And I understand we've changed the agenda just a little bit to get Larry right after Mark's update. So Larry, we'll get to you a second because I know you've got some scheduling issues. So we'll go ahead and start, Mark, with a legislative update.
Good afternoon, Chair Vallendroff and members Garrett and Holmes. It's very nice to have an EMT in interim. Of course, also known as the time when we actually do all of the work assigned to us by the legislature. As I mentioned last time, we're going to share the implementation tracker that I know you've seen in the past, or a version of it. But Jessica Dang and Mallory Hayes are kicking it up a notch. So we also want to make sure that it's integrated into, or at least communicating or mirroring, the agency's overall portfolio management dashboard. So we're getting a view of everything, not just those legislatively directed tasks, but all the work that we're doing to have a better sense of what to prioritize and what capacity we have for new things. But this is important. I think it can really help capture how we're planning to tackle a lot of this and in what order. So that means collaborations with different divisions like IT, the rules team and Justin's shops, and of course licensing. We've had some of those discussions already, but there's a lot more of that to come. So we're going to get clarity on the order of operations, and then we'll need to focus on some of the proviso tasks, in addition to all the bills, the proviso tasks that the legislature set. A big one is a study on the barriers that social equity applicants have faced when trying to open those retail stores. We've certainly heard from many people at meetings, the public comment sessions during the rulemaking process, and through surveys. This work, which is likely going to be led by the research team, is going to happen right when that second window opens, which will be interesting as well, I think. Hopefully, the more we identify specific barriers, the easier it is to figure out how both the board and the legislature can address those. Mm-hmm. It's not too early to be thinking about next year and our agency request bills for next session. So we're trying to refine the process for developing agency request legislation. And we know it has to start soon, especially in these long sessions where that mean you really need to get started working on next year's stuff right when the session ends, just before May. So we're going to be talking with the divisions about potential issues that could be addressed through legislation in the next month. So from now through kind of mid-June, identifying those potentials. And then finally, I should mention that we had the JLARC preliminary hearing on cannabis supply this morning. This was JLARC staff presenting to the committee. The focus has kind of been on two things: that one, Washington's market has an oversupply, and two, that CCRS struggles with production and supply data. So we'll be making a formal response here soon once we get the final report from JLARC in the next few weeks. And we will keep you up to date as we do. And I think the need for a new traceability system is, of course, something we know and are working on right now. And actually acquiring and implementing one is going to take money. And that's something that we'll be asking the legislature to help with in the months and years to come. And that's what I've got today.
Terrific. Thank you. Any questions from board members? Comments?
Yeah. Comment on the in preparation for agency requests and things next session, if needed. And Becky, you're there. Do you think that maybe now that we are kicking off a little bit of the second round of social equity, do we need to bring our internal social equity team back together and kind of start discussing what we know and what we're currently going to be experiencing, to see and talk about whether we need to talk about any agency requests legislation?
Yeah, that could be. I don't know if we have plans for or schedule?
So we hadn't planned on scheduling another meeting, and I think it's just due to everything that we have going on in the agency as a whole. But certainly, I think that we could put together a meeting to have that discussion to see if we should meet quarterly or, what's really the best way to keep this starting. What's the best way to go about, having those discussions about some of the barriers and issues, and that I think that just opening it up to the statewide for some of these applicants will make a difference as well. So, but yes, Ollie, we could definitely put something on the books for it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up, Board Member Garrett. I think also it's time for us to be thinking, and Gretchen and I were just talking about this, about the advisory councils and the Alcohol Advisory Council, the Cannabis Advisory Council, and the timing. We've talked about having those groups meet twice a year, and it seems like one of the good times for them to meet would be prior to the next legislative session and in discussions about potential agency request legislation. So Board Member Garrett and Board Member Holmes are both working on those groups in the timing of that kind of stuff, but I think that would be great. The other thing I had related to agency request legislation is just to update you that I've been talking to Will about the agency request legislation and really wanting us to have substantial conversations here with the board as we move forward so that the board is actively involved in the development of and decision around which ones of the agency request legislations move forward. Because I know I've got several, and I think other board members have ideas. And, again, I think the process is for us to make suggestions. It's still to go through the governor's office, et cetera, but really appreciate the time in this meeting to have those conversations. Any other questions for Mark? I have a couple of others unrelated to agency request legislation, but anything else on agency request legislation?
No,
All
but while we're talking about our meetings and stuff, Mark, you will be, when we have our cannabis advisory work group, and I'm sure with Pete and the alcohol, our staff is there, correct? So you all will be hearing the conversations from what people are having to say. And Mark,
absolutely.
you would be
I'm
there,
excited
right?
about it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Great. Okay, just going back to the implementation tracker, and the term you used, I was kicking it up a notch, from Jessica and Mallory.
Yeah.
Is there an opportunity? I think it would be great for us to have in the near future, Jessica and or Mallory come to a caucus meeting and just walk us through that and give us an update and what they're doing and that kind of thing.
I think that's a great idea. I think we did it at an EMT last year.
We can do it at
but
EMT,
we'll
wherever
figure it out.
you guys feel like is appropriate. Okay, that would be great. And I think that's it. Thank you very much. Oh, go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, if I could just make a
Pete, were you
comment.
trying to say something earlier, Pete?
No, I
Okay.
was saying, I'm waving it off.
Okay.
Thanks, Ollie.
Just speak up if you need something, Pete. You guys are
You-
awfully small on my screen unless you're saying something. So speak up.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
will do.
So just an ask, I guess, as the board members are thinking about agency request legislation, obviously Mark leads a lot of that. I end up doing some of the drafting. So if you have ideas, it's better if you email those to Mark and myself earlier than later, so we can start looking at how these concepts relate to other things that have been identified. Because typically, when we go through the prioritization, talking about 2 or 3 bills annually. So if all of you have, 3 ideas each, we'll have to be really exploring. And the reason I say
Board
that,
chairs go for, no, just kidding.
and the reason I say that is, I always get, I don't want to say concerned, but the time goes a lot faster than we realize. And so, kind of right now, even though session just ended, we're formulating ideas. Then the prioritization usually happens in June, drafting is early July, and then by end of July, we're out to stakeholders early August. And so there's, time just kind of clips right through.
Yeah.
So we need those ideas earlier so we can start thinking about what those concepts look like in drafting language. So I would ask that if you have these ideas, please share them earlier than later,
Okay.
so we can make sure that we're giving it due consideration.
Thank you. I appreciate you were reading my mind in terms of going through the timeline of when we need to actually be thinking about these things. So that was super helpful. It was a little quicker than I had anticipated, but it was helpful. And just, board members and, all of us can put those ideas. I would ask us not to get too attached to any one of those. I mean, I think we do have to narrow them down. And so there will be a process process of going through and deciding which ones and then working with the governor's office, but do send those forward as suggestions. All right, thank you. Mark, anything else? All right, appreciate it. All right, Larry, you're up next. We have an update from our enforcement and education.
Good afternoon. Can you all hear me okay?
Yep, we're good.
All right. Hey, thanks for moving the schedule around a little bit just
course.
to support me going to Waspic for a quick meeting with the director there. I did just want a couple of updates. One, we're continuing to work with Director Nordhorn on tribal impact questions and some updates involving the enforcement team. These are things that they've either reached out to Justin or my team on as far as some cannabis enforcement questions or tobacco enforcement questions. Most of them center around notification or coordination with local prosecutors or tribal law enforcement. But we haven't seen a lot of issues, and I think primarily that's thanks to Justin and Marla's support. Our tobacco tax and our liquor retail teams are continuing to work with licensing on some of the implementation questions, both around licensing timelines and then especially the FIFA meetings. Becky's been great in making sure, you know, our staff, our people are getting the right questions to the right places. Most of our concern might be around mostly education and linking up with some of those event venue staff. We don't have a lot of concerns about what enforcement would look like, but with them bringing on new teams who might be experiencing something different inside these retail venues, shaping our training early, and this is something Tony asked me to do, shaping the training early to make sure it kind of fits what the questions are and what the requirements are for those bills. They've been over communicative with us, so I don't think we're going to have an issue. When it comes to manning in the future, I don't think that's also going to be an issue. We'll just adjust some enforcement priorities this summer and next summer when it's time. Our Spokane retail captain, at the request of the director's office and research, is still working on some point of service questions for DUI enforcement. This was primarily around when we go for a blood warrant, and not to go too much in detail, but when we go for a blood warrant, there's some reporting on where the last place of service when you use a breathalyzer. It's on a form, it's easily identifiable, even if it's not filled out regularly. But when you go to a hospital or a phlebotomist to draw blood for DUI enforcement, right now that's not something that's easily obtained, and it would help us in some of our future research as well as some of our work in the field. Not having a lot of problems with that right now, and I see Sarah on here if there was a specific question about that. And then last thing, because hiring is a big deal and we are still working on reallocations of positions. At our last update, I think we briefed 24 permanent positions that were vacant. 2 of those were non-commissioned staff in FDA and our compliance consultant. We did make an offer on 1 compliance consultant for the Tacoma area yesterday. And after our coordination with the bargaining unit, we plan to post 4 additional compliance consultant positions later this week with the plan to have those on board before the end of the biennium. So I expect to see them come on board. This is the expansion that we'll ask for into the liquor side of compliance consultants. So all 4 of those compliance consultants will be on the liquor team under Maureen Wheeler, and we'll get them trained up. I think the last thing, FDA, still no update on a contract. We do expect some of those program specialists who are working in FDA may apply for compliance consultant positions, which would lower the amount of actual folks we have out doing tobacco youth access compliance checks. But Captain Zubay and her team are making adjustments to be able to plan for that gap if we experience it later this summer.
Good plan.
Those are primarily what I have, unless there's any questions.
Thank you very much, Larry. I just have one quick question about the liquor compliance consultants. Are those all here? Will those all be stationed here out of Olympia, or are those statewide, the 4 that you talked about hiring?
Yeah, those will be statewide. We have pretty good coverage in the Tacoma area. The position we filled yesterday is for Tacoma Silverdale area, and the supervisor is also in this area. One of those positions will be out east in Spokane, another one a little closer in the central Tri-Cities area region, and then 2 more will be closer to Olympia. But that's to cover the licensees I think that we have gaps in now.
Great. All right. Thank you very much. Any questions for Larry from the board? Seeing none, Larry, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Have a great day. All right, we have a guest with us today, Nicola, who's going to provide our licensing update this morning or this afternoon. So welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair Bollendroff, Board Member Garrett, and Holmes. My name is Nicola, and
I'm going to turn on the mic.
oh, sorry. Off to a great start.
I didn't have mine on for the first half.
Let's start over then. Good afternoon, Chair Bollendroff, Member Garrett, and Holmes. My name is Nicola Reed, as you know, and I work in the licensing division. I'm filling in today for Becky's updates. First, for enforcement and education, we had an offsite last month for 2 days. It gave us an opportunity to provide cross-divisional training, share resources, and really plan some future collaborations. It really helps to have this cohesiveness. It's important to both divisions as it aids in transparency, consistent messaging, and the approaches we take with the licensees and the stakeholders. For social equity, last week, the social equity team hosted a educational video launch for the first 4 of the social equity and cannabis educational videos. The agency was invited to either be in person or attend online. It was really successful, and we were really excited. It's the first time that we have created educational videos in-house. We definitely look forward to doing more. And so video 1 through 4 is now available on our website, and the team is progressing right along with video number 5 and number 6. Those 2 videos would be specific to the social equity registrants that make it through into the application process. In addition, AltaPoint has an active website. If you remember, though, they are our third-party reviewer for the social equity program. Their website also has tutorials on how to do different steps within the process. It's a really great website. If you'd like to see it, I'd be happy to share it with all of you. And lastly, on videos, the social equity team met with the Commission of Hispanic Affairs, and they wanted to partner with us and discuss ways moving forward that they could translate some of our videos into Spanish. So that's pretty exciting. The social equity team also met with the AWC and is looking to schedule future meetings. Through hard work and collaboration between the cannabis unit and the social equity team, and meeting with the city of Linwood, they had a ban that went into place in 2015. They now have lifted that and are going to allow retail stores there. So that's really great for the applicants for this next round. And the last update for social equity would be that the total count for licenses available is 69. So we're 17 above the 52 that was put into legislation. So that will be great.
Yeah.
Are there any questions so far on the updates I've given?
Any questions for?
Nicola, on the videos, are we able to see the count on the number viewing the videos or anything?
Yes, so that we are able to look up those metrics. The communications team can. I know that, you want to speak to that, Brian?
Only to say that, yeah, we have looked it up together with licensing. They're not too high right now, just in the low triple digits, I think. But I think that the push is going to come really when people start applying and doing that, they'll elevate.
And Nicola, just to clarify, those are videos that we've made in-house, separate from the videos that I saw from the third-party vendor that's going through the licensing process. So
Yeah.
And those are great videos too, super helpful.
1 through 4 is an overview of the social equity program,
Okay.
the rubric, what documents might possibly help verify a qualification, things of that nature.
Great.
Yeah.
Look forward to checking those out.
All right, so for liquor and cannabis, there is a significant increase in processing times and the number of applications that the liquor and cannabis units are receiving. The increase in processing times has to do with the workarounds that the staff currently have to use within leads. And
Nicola,
then,
Pete had his hand up.
oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry, Pete, that was my fault.
Sorry.
No
I didn't
worries.
see it.
Just a quick question for Nicola. What was again the number of licenses available for social equity applicants, and how are they distributed among the tiers?
So it's just for retail at this time. There is 69. The legislation had given 52 additional retailers, but any licenses that were never opened or were maybe canceled or didn't renew also go to the social equity program. So there was an increase, I think, of 17 from the 52 allotted.
But there are also the processor licenses as well as the small amount of producers, right?
Yeah, yes, there was that. This first window is just going to focus on the retail, and then, through further evaluation of needs within the state, then we'll look into the possible producers and processors.
Thank you, Pete.
Thank you. I'm sorry about that. I'll try and look that way more.
It's my fault. I have to be monitoring that.
So, and it seems like once they kind of get through one step in the process, so if one bug is fixed, then they get to the next step and then something else comes to light. So, they're working hard through it. They're doing a great job. The policy and education team is doing a lot of training, creating of job aids, chair siding with some of our staff, basically everything within their power to assist with the transition. And so we just ask that customers have a little bit of patience with us during this time. It's a little bit challenging, but we will get through it. Okay, so for policy and education, I'll first focus on the responsible vendor program. So for the first quarter of 2025, the team did register 50 additional retailers to the responsible vendor program. We feel this is probably due to the collaboration of enforcement and licensing and the compliance consultants talking about the program more when they're out doing site visits.
That's terrific. Is that a substantial increase over the last, say, couple of years? I mean, is this a spike if we were to look at the number and all of a sudden we've had a spike in them?
I would say yes. I think
it sounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a spike that we've been doing. We've really put a lot of effort
That's
into
great.
utilizing enforcement. During our last collaboration meeting with them, it was something that they decided that they wanted to also be a part of. So anytime they go out and have conversations, the consultants bring the information and encourage those licensees, those retailers to apply.
That's wonderful. And I was going to save this to the end, but I'll say it now. And that is that earlier on, you had mentioned the offsite between licensing and enforcement. And it's just such a perfect example of the benefit of those kinds of things. So really appreciate the work and the leadership and leading by example of the two of you and to your teams around the importance of that. So we really appreciate it.
Yes, we really appreciate it too. So licensing did do a training with enforcement and then created like a printout that they could hand out to licensees. And then we update those trainings when we get together and talk about different scenarios people are seeing out there. So let's see here. So in addition to the policy and education team really putting efforts in to help staff get through the leads transition, they're also looking into how we're going to process the bills that recently passed. And so putting a lot of time into that. I want to give a big shout out to Desiree Monroy. She has been amazing this last session. She took us through it so smoothly and educated us along the way. And I felt like I was nearly up there myself. So,
Second that, just for the record. She's
Thank
been
you,
fantastic.
thank you. So for compliance and adjudications, this one, there's a steady decline in the amount of licensees that have been moved towards suspension. And this is due to whether in response to non-payment or failure to report. And this is due to the compliance and adjudications unit and finance collaborating on means of to bring licensees back into compliance before they would hit a suspension status. So that's been good. Before I move on, do you have any questions so far on what I've spoken to?
Any questions for Nicola? Seeing none, go ahead.
Okay. So for sports and entertainment facilities, after almost a year of planning and collaboration with stakeholders and other divisions, and then going before the board and receiving approval for the spirits and general seating pilot program, kind of a top alone. We're now working with each licensee, so that would be Levy at Lumen Field, Climate Pledge Arena, and T-Mobile Park to update their operating plans to be allowed to be part of this pilot program. So we are excited moving forward with that. So for packaging and labeling, by adding a new team member in October of 2024, it's really helped the scope of being able to review more liquor labels. Initially, the goal was to review 25 a week, and that's when we had just one person reviewing. We're now at 100% of review, and so that's really great. And then that's in addition to any cannabis edibles that are submitted for product packaging or labeling approval. Due to the liquor review, I think about 7 labels were brought to the review committee to have further discussions on. The committee is in place and consists of representation from different units to just give more perspective to the labels that we're looking at.
That's great.
And, so I want to close out my updates today by sharing that the customer service is finding success with leads. The ability to issue special occasion licenses is quicker and a lot more streamlined, so that's good. The unit continues to show awesome progress in the new system with some of the things that they do. And this is also while answering close to 2,700 phone calls last month. This is a huge increase in calls, which typically trend around 1,300. And a majority of the calls being that they are assisting customers with navigating the portal and walking them through the process. So that's been really great work that they've been doing too. And so that concludes the updates I was wanting to share today. Are there any final questions I can answer?
Any questions? I don't see any, but thank you. Great job. Really nice
you.
to see you here and nice to see you step into Becky's shoes for this meeting. You did a great job. I do have one just quick comment, and that is around packaging and labeling. And, you know, the board sees cases in litigation review under the old process whereby we just let them go through because we couldn't review all of them. And we then, of course, have to pull those. And so it just seems like such a better process to have 100% review of those is terrific. So thank you for all of you guys' work to pull that together.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. All right, moving right along, we'll get a communications update from Brian.
Good afternoon, Chair Vollendroff, members Garrett and Holmes. Kicking off with the media, nothing earth shattering that's been coming through. We're following our trend where things, have been relatively quiet. Did have one come in today. We'll always get a trickle, 1 or 2 a day, but there was one on the social equity. It was the first one I heard from the Inlander that Sam was working upstairs, and so I'm giving her more opportunity on social equity stuff to be able to talk just about the window and understanding it, etc. Some of the key projects we're continuing to work with the licensing team. We've already heard the updates from Nicola on that. One thing that's new there is that we'll be running some paid advertisements, something that we did last time and I think is important, and targeted publications. So this is going into Seattle Medium and the Seattle Facts to publications that tend to reach the African-American community in the Puget Sound area, and La Raza, which is a Spanish written media outlet that runs statewide and beyond. We had an ad translated into Spanish that's going to run in that La Raza. And then, as you asked about the translations earlier, we also translated the rules and the key documents and stuff for social equity are available on our website. So hope to have a positive outlet with that. I brought some sample ads that I'll pass down to you, Jim, but to member Holmes and Garrett, I'll email those up to you just so you can see them if you have any questions. Moving on, SharePoint Online. Nothing terribly new there other than we continue to work with the divisions to knock those off, and we're down to the very end. Enforcement went live since the last time that we were here. One thing that I think is that we know and that we see is that each of the divisions had to take this on to be able to do it. And some with some trepidation. I think some of the people that were assigned to it are not necessarily terribly, loving, new technology and all that kind of stuff. But by the end, I think it's been a real growth experience for a lot of these divisions and the people that were assigned to do that stuff. They kind of energized by it. Enforcement with Monica over there being the last one. She, of course, works with our team primarily, Sam and Brad, but it's good to see folks come through on the other end of that and get a new kind of a skill set and be inspired to be able to do the project and carry out their site going forward is just something that's going to be a tool for, I think, everybody in the agency. So just a positive thing that I thought was kind of cool that I've observed coming out of that. And JLARC, you heard Mark talk about that. You'll hear it probably from Tony too. I'll be involved in some way before we get to the final messaging on the 28th, part of those conversations. And then just a couple small things is that you had brought up at the last meeting, Chair Volendroff, about your desire about overall messaging and raising the board's voice on some of these things, in particular, starting with post-session stuff. So I did meet with Will, and I saw some of the work that was initially done on that. And so I've been, I'll work with what I've got there, and I've worked with the various divisions and asked for some input and trying to help coordinate that, so that when Will gets back and we're meeting with you, we'll have something to talk about, and I'll show you where we're at, and should be along the ways, I hope. And Pete and I collaborated a little bit on a project that he's got in a presentation he's given up in the University of Washington next week. So it's been good to be able to talk with him and walk through that.
Nice. Thank you, Brian. Any questions for Brian? All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Just thanks. Appreciate it, Brian.
All right. Next, we'll have a policy update from Justin.
Okay. Good afternoon, Chair Volendroff, members Garrett and Holmes. Where to start? So I'll start over on our research side of the equation. So we're doing a few different things. We've been talking with California and others on how they've been able to partner with their universities. With the federal dollar risk issues, there's a lot of apprehension. California seems to have been able to make something work. So we've been working, talking with them. We've talked to WSU, trying to figure out, is there a mechanism that we could have that type of partnership within Washington? So that is continuing in conversations. We've got ongoing work with the dashboards. So you're going to be seeing more dashboards coming out in the near future.
We had a preview yesterday, as a matter of fact.
Excellent, excellent. I hope that was to your liking. So we've also been doing a couple different things around briefs and other research. So I just met with the team today, and we're taking a look at pesticide remediation. Not to say that the agency's willing to go down that road yet, but I think it begs the question. We don't hear a lot about that across the country. We do hear no other state does this. And if every state just continues to say no other state does this because no other state does this, it doesn't really give a logical response on should we or should we not. So there's not a lot of data out there, not a lot of research out there, but we're exploring it from a kind of an overarching standpoint. California is doing something a little different. Oregon has something different than the other states. So we're going to be exploring that a little bit further. But the question is there a safe way that has been identified to be able to do this type of thing? So far, we haven't identified anything. Washington, D.C. just came out with some regulations, I believe, that said basically they see no safe way to do this, so therefore it's not able to be remediated. But I think that it's something that the states, we should be posing that question and looking into it. So we've got some work going on around that. And then we've also got for this, the end of the fiscal year, we were able to secure a data set from the Poison Control Center. So we'll be able to get a robust multi-year data set so we can start looking at any of the health impacts and implications around a variety of different calls to the Poison Control Center. So we're really excited when that data set comes in, and Sarah and Nick will be diving into those areas.
Is this the first time we've gotten that data set from Poison Control?
Yeah, we ended up reaching out, trying to contract with them. So, we've gotten some data from them over the years, but we haven't had like the full data set to be able to look at all these different variables. So
Yeah.
that's what we're really
And
excited about.
just to take the opportunity to make a quick comment, and that was one of the things that we talked about when we stood up the research team, is the power of getting data sets from other state agencies and coupling it with ours and seeing what that story looks like versus independently looking at those. So that's just terrific. And hopefully the beginning of us working with others, traffic safety, healthcare authority, et cetera, on data sets that might tell a story that might be helpful us in policy decisions.
Absolutely. So around on the health education and outreach side, doing a lot of collaboration with the other agencies. So this time of year is the recruitment for the Healthy Youth Survey. So there's been a lot of background work going on that topic. We work with 3 different agencies on that. So there's a point person on every agency. So there's a tremendous amount of work that happens this time of year because recruitment happens in the spring to have schools participate in the fall. So we'll probably have more to come later in the summer on some of these particular areas. But one of the things that we're finding, not only as we see some conversations in this space move around, with some of the budget cuts that are occurring, we are seeing some movement of personnel in some of the areas around public health. And so, for example, Kristen's been working with a number of folks for quite a while, and some of those folks may not be in those positions. They may get moved elsewhere or whatever. Some, unfortunately, may not even, I don't want to overspeak, for Department of Health, but we understand that some of those long-term relationships may have to be explored because we're going to have new people coming in and having to work on that front. So, these types of impacts are definitely impacting our work as well. So Larry mentioned it earlier on the tribal front. We have been trying to support the other divisions around some of the tribal issues. And I think one of the things that I wanted to call out that I find, we had a good conversation the other day with one of the tribes. And just as a, kind of a reminder, because you don't always keep it in the front of your mind, hopefully we do. But for me, I was like, yep, this is a great reminder that when there's like some tension on, the tribe may not like something an agency does, it could be a response to how they worked with other agencies. And so I was walking through with one of the folks. I'm like, hey, tell me more, share with me, what are the concerns? And the concerns weren't about us. It was about how other agencies in the past have interacted with them. And those were the concerns are raised, and they don't want to see those same things happen when we're engaging with them. And I'm like, okay, so that's really good to recognize, because if we go into these meetings, people are like, oh my gosh, they're complaining about us. They may not be. It may be that they just have had experiences elsewhere with governments, and not only state government, but local governments. And so I thought it was a really good reminder that, just kind of pause when we're exploring different issues, because there may be a lot more that meets the eye than we're that's just on the surface there. And so we're working on some operational responses for enforcement. I think we've collaborated really well. I think the tribe will be happy with where we're at. So as things come to pass and you have more questions, I'll be able to answer those. But we're in the final stages of developing a response there. So we've had shifting over into the rules area. Oh, I should also say on the tribal front, Marla is also starting to work on, we're getting close to the end of not really close, to the end of a voluntary, I'm forgetting the term, compliance approach on an alcohol impact area for the city of Spokane. If you remember last year, they let their alcohol impact area lapse based on removing it from ordinances. They're interested in doing that, and so they're starting from square one and trying to do all these surveys and stuff. And because they went through it so long ago, we don't necessarily have everything as a good example for them. We found some stuff that we're working with them, but really, it's a good example of making sure that for the local governments to keep on top of those and not let something slide, because this is a really big issue for the city to be able to go through and try to overcome. So,
Can you remind me about our role in cities' development or passing alcohol impact areas?
yeah, so the alcohol impact area, basically the city comes to us and says, hey, we'd like to do an alcohol impact area. And there's got to be a voluntary compliance period. So they go and work with their community and try to talk to the licensees that they believe would be in the geographic area that they've identified to see if they'll have voluntary compliance on restricting some of the product sales. They're also doing trash pickups and litter surveys to see, you know, what types of beverages are the problems that are being created based on where people are leaving those types of things. And they put all of that together after a 6-month period and present that information to us. And then we evaluate whether or not they're meeting the standards within the rules. And we'll be bringing something to the board to request for an alcohol impact area to be adopted or not. And so when we're looking at these, if an alcohol impact area is adopted, typically there's a banned product list that goes with that. So not only are the retailers really interested in how this goes, the distributors are also interested, and they will chime in on alcohol impact areas. And from what we see in Spokane right now, they're looking at a modified boundary than their last alcohol impact area. So I'm sure there's going to be some new licensees that would be involved. And so we're going to probably hear a lot more as this thing continues to unfold. So I just wanted folks to be aware that that's going on right now. And I thank you to Nicola for helping try to gather some of this background information, because Nicola used to be kind of the lead expert, and she still is on a number of these areas. And so I really appreciate the help that she's been providing as well.
Just to verify, we never initiate the conversation around, this is all driven by the local.
Yeah, they're petitioning the agency to do this. And then after the fact, our officers and staff would go into the businesses, and if they see a retailer, for example, selling banned product, then that would be a violation of the alcohol impact area.
Great, thank you.
We're also working on rules in progress tracker, and we're hoping to have one of those up. It's I think I mentioned this before, but similar to kind of the legislative progression model, where you'll be able to see different milestones. So we had a meeting on that earlier today, and things are going pretty smooth. And so we're working on one for internal, which will have probably more detailed because of the rule project implications to the other divisions and how many resources they need to be looking at. And then we'll have a little bit easier one to read for external as it continues to develop. But hopefully we'll be able to showcase in a very open manner what are the rules, where are they at in the process, and the like. We also have the product placement rules that are going on. I know this is a point of interest because a lot of high-level stakeholders are coming and pinging the board members and such. We've had over half dozen meetings with different industry members and associations. We still have a few more to come. So we were planning on having a supplemental CR 102 in May. That's not going to happen. We want to get through all of the stakeholdering first before we open up another draft for response prior to formalizing any type of CR 102 and draft proposal for the board. There were a couple smaller associations that we hadn't heard from. So we are actually reaching out to them to say, were you interested in a conversation? Because everybody else has reached out to us. So we've got the large grocers, convenience stores, all the way up to Anheuser-Busch, Sazerac, et cetera. So we've got a whole bunch of folks that have been interested in this topic, and we've been doing a lot of background meetings to get their reactions to the initial drafts. So more work is to come on that particular front. And then on the legislative implementation, so we've met around the prioritization. And so we had, I think I said 7 bills that we need to open. We're going to whittle that down a little bit because 3 of them we believe can be done in an expedited rule, which is just basically technical changes. And so we're going to consolidate 3 of those into one rule package. We're going to have to leave a couple of those out to be done in the other rule projects on the licensing fee, for example. So instead of opening that up for a fee change, we'll open it up for the policy change and just insert the technical change on the fee. And that'll all be within the CR 101 as we develop those. So, so we've got a number of those in the pipeline and planned for presentation to open the CR 101s in June. as well as opening the pending approved rule petitions. And so we are planning on opening 101s on all those formally approved rule petitions, but in all transparency, we're not going to be working on those rules until we get past this implementation of all legislation. We just can't prioritize those at this particular point. And then going to one of the requests Member Garrett had, we've reached out with Brian's team and had conversations, and we are planning on trying to create some educational videos, particularly around some of the legislative implementation. So more to come on that as that continues to develop, but I just wanted to circle back and let folks know that we are moving down that road. So thank you to Brian and his team for that as well. And I think that is all.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Any questions for Justin?
I don't have a question for Justin, but Pete, I was actually thinking when he was talking about all of the activity and conversation around the product placement, that might be a good subject matter to have with when you put your advisory group together and have the first meeting before he does a supplementary.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Great, thank you very much. All right, now on to directors. So wait a minute, general agency update from Becky.
So good afternoon, Chair Vollendroff and members Garrett and Holmes. I want to start with the leads, and you heard a little bit about that from Nicola, but certainly we continue to work on fixes and bugs in the lead system. Last week, we had internal leads update. They updated about 5 fixes, and then all 5 were internal and then 1 external fix. This past weekend, we also did an emergency fix, which is currently in testing right now. And so we're hoping to see that go live on Thursday for that external fix. And then we did do a 30-day S&P Pulse survey. We did one at a week. We're doing it at 30 days, 60 days, and 90 days. And that just gives the agency an opportunity to see where staff are and how they're feeling about the system, how they're navigating the system. And then we'll sit down and figure out then we'll look at the data, we'll look at the information that staff has provided, and then kind of next steps before we hit that 60-day as well. And then we had recognition, public service recognition week, that we had an ice cream. I always call it an ice cream social, but it was for staff that were here. The directors, all of the directors, the executive team participated. It was a nice turnout. They're also going to do the same out in the offices for our enforcement education team. So again, it's a little way to recognize all of our staff, but they certainly enjoyed it. And a big thanks to Gloria. She always does an amazing job at putting things together for all of us to stand there and give out ice cream. So it was very nice. And then I want to mention about the executive order, because we have a big thank you to the director's office, Jessica Dang, Brian Smith, licensing division, finance, that they've all been involved in putting together a list of all of the executive order required us to put together a list of all of our license types, our permits. And so we, as you know, that just in licensing alone, they have over 100 liquor license types. We had to not just put together that information, but describe the RCW or WAC that covered each license, and then the costs that was associated with that, as well as timeframes. At some point here, we'll need to get together and have conversations with the public around the timeframes that we've come up with, our most current timeframes, as well as what we're looking at for future timeframes. So a lot of work by everybody in the organization, but great job by Jessica in helping us put all of that together, and communication as well. And I think that's it from me.
Great, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Any comments or questions for Becky? All right, now we'll have our director comments from Tony today.
Thank you, Chair Vollendroff, members Garrett and Holmes. I'd like to start by talking about the JLARC committee preliminary report that was done today. Rachel and I did attend that virtually, and they actually did ask us some questions. We didn't necessarily expect that, but they were very talkative. So we tried to answer their questions. But as Mark mentioned, we will do a written formal response to the JLARC report, which we will get shortly. Today was just their PowerPoint slide presentation, which was very high level. But the members of the committee that were there seemed very interested, and their questions were pretty broad, I would say, about cannabis. But it was a good discussion, and I'm glad that we could both be there to answer some of their questions.
Me too.
So the next item I have is that Will and I did attend part of the licensing and E&E offsite. It was great that Will and I were able to attend part of it in person and see staff. We both really enjoyed that. I went to the breakout sessions with staff instead of with the managers. I don't know if I was supposed to do that, but it was great to sit in on the staff breakout sessions. Mallory and Jessica were able to facilitate at least part of those days. I know that the licensing and E&E staff did a tremendous amount of work organizing those days with agendas and everything that goes into putting together offsites. We were fortunate to be able to use the L&I space, which isn't a cost to us. And that's a nice space because you have parking and of course you have a espresso stand upstairs. So that's important.
Very important.
So I'm glad they were able to do that and be together and that Will and I were able to attend part of it. On this Friday, we have a project portfolio management meeting with all of leadership. Mark mentioned how our legislative dashboard is going to integrate with our project portfolio management because obviously our implementation is a heavy lift and we need to consider that as we consider the work we do on all of our projects. And so we're going to integrate that together so we have discussion about all of that work. So I'm happy that he is working with Jessica and Mallory because they are, Mallory specifically is in charge of that project portfolio management. And I agree with Becky that the ice cream social, for lack of a better word, the recognition was great. We had a local ice cream company and it was so delicious. Yes, Gloria did a great job. Everything already came packaged, so we just basically stood there, but it was lovely.
Nice.
So, and it was nice to support a local vendor with that. So we, as Becky said, there continue to be fixes and updates and leads. It is more of a struggle than I wish it was, honestly. I wish that there were less bugs and defects that we had to fix, but we are continuing to work hard on those. And George Williams, our CIO, is continuing to put pressure on the team, that's the Accenture team, to continue to fix those. His goal is to have all of the SEV2, the level 2 bugs fixed by June 12th. So we'll see how that works. I continue to monitor that every week. As of Friday, there were nine of the level 2 bugs. The scale goes from 1 to 4. Number 1 is basically the most severe. And but number 2 is very significant. So we want to get rid of those number 2s so we can just focus on the 3 and 4s. And those are significant as well. They still cause extra work for the licensing staff, but we definitely need to get those SEV2s, severe level 2s, knocked out. So we're working on those every day. And big thanks to the team, the SMP team, the leads team, for continuing that effort. And Becky still has a lot of subject matter experts that are working on leads every day. So that's still a big lift. But it's still a good rollout. It's still a good product, even though this part is a struggle and takes, what does Jay say, care and feeding every day. But we're going to continue to get through it. So. And my last comment is that I just want to thank the team. The leadership team has been amazing while Will has been gone, working together as a team, communicating. Becky has been fabulous as my supportive acting deputy director. I call her into meetings at the drop of a hat or whenever I need her, and she's been very supportive. And generally, the whole team has just been working great together, as they always do. But I noticed it differently from this perspective this week.
Sure.
I rely on them extra this week, and that's wonderful. So Will can go on vacation and not worry too much. Hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Tony? All right. Well, I will just echo that everybody's the thanks that Tony just expressed to the team. It's nice to be able to say to our director, go on vacation, just have a good time and relax, knowing that people will step up. And I've seen it myself. So thank you, Tony, especially to you and others. So, all right. Anything else from board members for today's agenda? All right. Well, hearing none, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Have a great day.